We have been talking for a long time here, more than 3 years, about sort of the ramifications, the repercussions of the pandemic and how many things have turned batshit crazy. Do we have any idea why it is that it's batshit and not another animal that gets assigned to the crazy? Because batshit is one that I don't understand.
Well, you can make a lot of things from guano.
It's linked to crazy.
He's right.
But one of the craziest things in the last 3 or 4 years, Stugotz, and it's gotten so crazy that I do believe the public is largely numb to it, the descent of Aaron Rodgers from whatever it is you thought of him before to now being someone who is missing mandatory camp with the Jets, and a lot of people think it's because he's got an ayahuasca retreat. So now it's not drug use entirely the reason that he's missing mandatory camp, and ayahuasca is wildly misunderstood. So I know a lot of people listening to this, Mike has referred to it as tripping balls. What ayahuasca is actually is a spiritual journey that you're altered by I think it's a tree bark that makes you very sick and is supposed to be about killing the ego and showing you things about your life that you need to see so they can die. I've told you before that I've thought about doing it and I've always been too scared to get that kind of sick. But many people who do it and believe it call it life-altering. Say it will change that, DMT and other things, will change your entire perspective on how it is that you view the world. So whatever you think of ayahuasca, there still is the story of the Jets quarterback is missing mandatory camp and is going to be fined and is causing distractions with his team, apparently because he's got a spiritual retreat planned. Again, the reporting on
That's important to him, and Robert Saleh did not think it was important enough for him to miss a mandatory camp.
His spiritual journey is important to him, no matter what you make of his spiritual journey and whether you want to laugh at it or not. And his football coach doesn't care about his spiritual journey.
Right.
But to see that at the top of an organization and have it missing mandatory camp after everything else that has happened with Aaron Rodgers is fairly flabbergasting to see that as a choice being made by him.
I think what the coach is saying is, hey, take your spiritual journey on your own time, not on my time.
And what he's saying is, hey, coach.
You had the entire offseason, Dan.
No, I don't know, given the timing of these things, right? I don't know how special a ceremony this is. I don't know why it is that he can't be at mandatory camp because this thing.
This is all speculative.
It is all speculative.
Yeah.
It is all speculative.
And ayahuasca is supposed to kill the ego, according to you?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like his ego has been
killed.
Yeah.
He also reportedly went on one in March, right? I mean, I don't know the timeline.
I would say that if Lamar Jackson had a very obvious dip in play and his health started being affected and he publicly touted drugs as much as Aaron Rodgers does, it would be received a lot different. If purportedly Lamar Jackson wanted to step away from a mandatory camp because of something surrounding drugs, it would be received not the same way. It is a fairly, for as much as he's in the news cycle, and a lot of it's his own doing, like he is living a charmed existence for whatever reason.
And to couch it as I'm searching for something, I'm searching for this, I'm trying to get rid of my ego, give me a break. You're tripping balls. Mike is right. Don't give me that. It's like Jim Morrison of the Doors. I don't want to hear about it. He takes acid, he takes LSD, he takes mushrooms, ayahuasca, whatever it is, because it feels good. That's
okay.
why.
All right. That is not the way the people who do this talk about this, but I understand the skepticism about psychedelics, and I understand the skepticism about this. I'm simply telling you, because I don't believe anyone here has any expertise in talking to others who have gone down this path. I will tell you that my brother went down this path aggressively. And so I see when Aaron Rodgers does talk about some of this stuff, how he is talking about mind-altering as also mind-opening. And when it's mind-opening, one of the things that happens is football's pretty silly. Work is pretty silly. jobs are pretty silly. We're talking about life and death stuff and connection to the spiritual world. And while I understand anyone listening to this dismissing it, I will just tell you that the people who believe in this kind of stuff do so fervently and would not dismiss
Work
it.
is silly is a much different message than anything that has to do without winning. Let's keep it out of this building.
Correct.
He also has the means to just retire if it's silly, so why not?
Correct.
Because he hasn't done enough to kill the ego.
Also, bat comes from the popular phrase from around the turn of the previous century, to have bats in the belfry. The image compares bats in a church steeple to
Very
crazy
good.
ideas in a person's head. From there we get terms like batty and gone bats. That's from Quora.
Yeah. And I've recently, I tried a gummy for the first time in my life after 30. Like, I've just not really seen the appeal of drugs, but I am warming up to certain things. I do feel relaxed. It does get me in a better place. But most of the people that tell me to do ayahuasca aren't generally not people I would take their advice on anything from. And Aaron Rodgers does seem to fit that mold.
To answer Stugotz's question, because I know there's a lot to laugh at here and there's a lot to be skeptical of. But when Billy says, well, you can just retire, or when Stugotz gets mad at the Jets quarterback, he can have everything he wants because go ahead and do something about it. Somebody, go ahead and do something about it. Go ahead, Jets coach. Go ahead, Jets owner. Go ahead, league. Do something about it. The answer is you can't. You will not. He will do whatever he wants because he can. He can take
Rob
the
Saleh
money.
did do something about it. He said publicly this is
He fined him.
this is not an excused absence, and that's the byproduct of your decision right there is the consequences. You get called out.
Well, let me be clear. I don't care. I understand why Salah's upset. I understand why fans are upset. But, Dan, he chose this organization. This is a desperate organization. They'll allow him to do anything as long as he shows up and plays quarterback every Sunday.
Well,
I'm serious.
But that's a big question.
Right.
And he's got to do it, well, maybe not all that well, given what we saw to their defense
The bar's
and the
very
quarterback
low, Mike.
position. But
Yeah.
he has slid quite a bit. And it does, on the timeline, it matches up with him approaching ages where we've literally only seen one guy do it at the same level.
Well, thank you for bringing that guy up because I do believe that one of the distortions that has happened over the last 15 years, Stugotz, as Tom Brady noticed, well, wait a minute. If LeBron's his own economy, then wait a minute. How valuable am I? Aaron Rodgers is testing all the limits on that, Stugotz. He's testing all the limits on how desperate are you that I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want. And furthermore, what I'm going to do is go from State Farm spokesman and everything that entails, Stugotz. You got to be clean to get those things. You lose those things when you're not clean image-wise. To go from that to I do whatever I want, whenever I want, and I'll take your consequences because your consequences aren't going to change my behavior. My life is bigger than football. The things I think are too big to be kept quiet anymore. I don't care whether I'm a distraction to the organization or the huddle or whether I'm missing mandatory camp. I'm leaving now. What are you going to do about it? Okay, disgrace my name. I'm going to be in a different psychedelic land where I don't have to hear what your criticisms are. I'm not going to be in the country. I'm not going to hear the noise. I'll be back in time for football. He's really testing the limits on power and what he can get away with.
But is it going well for him?
I mean, he's going to keep getting his money, and he's going to get bad public opinion, and he's going to get a job as the quarterback of the Jets when he decides to return to it.
And he's
Well,
also
for now, though.
But he's also going to get considered as a vice presidential candidate. There are good things for leaning into some of the aspects that he's leaning in. Like, his profile has certainly increased because to some he's more infamous and to others he's speaking truth to power, and he's being brave with some of his stances, however ridiculous you may find them. He has totally changed his perception in the last few years, but when he first started doing this, he had excellent play to go with it. Is he going to become a cautionary tale? Is it going to be known as a red flag when your aging quarterback decides to start turning to ayahuasca? Like, he's at the forefront of a lot of new stuff here. We're not used to seeing people do it at this age. But like we all said, there's only been one that's been able to do it. And that is who Aaron Rodgers will be graded against, independent of all that off-field stuff. Like when we're talking about the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen,
Right.
in terms of playing the position, I don't think it doesn't get much better than the Bradys, the Rodgers, the Mahomeses of the world.
But it feels like once his play is done, he's going to then be compared to the greats of Jesse Ventura. And is that the path that he wants to go down?
Bless you.
He may view it as Reagan.
He knows it all goes away if he shows up on Sundays and plays well. So he doesn't care. To Dan's point,
Yes.
he does not care.
Yeah.
He's out of the country. He doesn't care that Sal Licata is ripping him on WFAN. Go ahead. Have at it. Get your 20 shares. He doesn't care.
You're
Aaron
absolutely
Rodgers.
right. Which comes back to his original point. Like, we don't want anything in this building that affects winning. Like, he may be. I do genuinely think that whatever Aaron Rodgers is doing outside of camp, he believes it is ultimately helping his goal. I don't need that rationale explained to me. I get it. Whether it's wrong or right, that's not for me to decide. But it might not actually be helping.
It might not be, but I will tell you that Tom Brady at Aaron Rodgers' age was pretty obviously unhappy that he was trapped inside the confines of not being able to use his power in New England the way that he wanted to. And so he left to do not psychedelics, but
To win.
But break COVID protocol with Byron Leftwich coming over to his house so he can win. And so he could beat Patrick Mahomes again in the playoffs. So, like, you have very valid concerns, I think, if this is your quarterback and the more quirky he's gotten, and that's putting kid gloves on it, the quirkier he's gotten publicly, the worse the on-field product has also been.
you do realize, though, right, that he does believe that he aligned with the universe and whatever he is doing will make him the best version of quarterback. He's betting on himself so thoroughly here that he's like, I need this more than I need mandatory camp. I need this enough that I'm willing to have the consequences of my coach and my organization endure the embarrassment of this.
This is his
But
mandatory minicamp.
I think the difference, or one of the differences between him and Tom Brady is I don't think with Tom Brady you ever questioned how much he actually cared about football, which is where you kind of are with Aaron. Like, does Aaron like football? We don't really know.
And the times that he has reportedly flexed his muscle inside that organization is not just with stuff like this. It's, hey, we want to sign Joe Flacco. Actually, I prefer Tim Boyle. We got to hang out. I like Nate Hackett. Like, they're making concessions for Aaron Rodgers that are hurting them. Because I think there isn't a Jets fan on this planet that wouldn't have preferred Joe Flacco over Tim Boyle.
We signed Randall Cobb.
Billy, I disagree with you that he does not love football. He absolutely loves the way Sundays make him feel. Mandatory camp, Sundays and Mondays and performing well.
In his defense, he went to all the stuff he didn't have to go to. All of it. All the offseason workouts, all that stuff that was voluntary. He went to all of them.
That's exactly what you do when you know you're about to miss one of the things that you can't miss.
Okay, but Mike, Dan asked how desperate you have to be. This desperate.
You're
this desperate.
You're right about this. This is the most spectacular midlife crisis I have ever seen in sports.
It won't end.
But, like, can you be the person that says don't have distractions and be the number one distraction?
I'm not going to claim that he is not inconsistent. What I am going to claim is when you say how important is football to him, not as important as wherever it is that he's headed on this path, obviously. And it's not because football hasn't been important to him. It's because something else is now more important to him. You can't be MVP great at that sport without loving it. It's not possible. You can't do – look, Drew Brees said every time he was in the facility at 10 p.m. and everyone else is gone, greatness is lonely. Like, you can't be that good at it if you don't love it. But he is searching for something else in a way that's publicly obvious. The rest of us think, or many of us think he's lost. But he thinks he's going to win.
Yeah, but aligned with his journey of self-discovery, he's also saying asinine things, whether it's the government-created AIDS or getting into a very public spat with Jimmy Kimmel over, at the very least, jokes in super poor taste about pedophilia. So you have all these things going along with it, and it all kind of sparked by this journey of self-discovery.
We also have no on-field proof that what he's doing is actually important or if it's working.
Or if it's working is the biggest part about all
injured.
this.
Right.
It's just, and again, it's timing out that this might have been the natural. He could have been the most straight-laced dude, quiet, not said a word, literally in that facility day and night, and his play still would have dropped just because of his age.
I also personally don't really care what Aaron Rodgers thinks about anything, like one way or another. I just don't understand why we equate odd behavior to enlightened.
Oh, I'm just telling you his viewpoint on what he's doing with psychedelics and with ayahuasca.
Yeah, but it's just the nature of celebrity today. Like, people are drawn to Russell Brand even more so now as he's really veered into a specific lane because, oh, this person gives off interesting. But really, there's not much there. It's like you think someone's super interesting and you want to find out more of them, and then they believe the earth is flat. You know, it's like, why did I actually put that much stock in this person?
I've been surprised by Russell Brand and how far right he has gone. And it makes me wonder, honestly, because I know we get accused of being in a certain kind of echo chamber ourselves and being affected by that echo chamber. I know people think that I and we are woke fried as an entity. It does make me wonder, though, when you start putting a toe in those waters toward the extreme and then start getting the applause validation of the extreme.
And the money.
No, because, yes.
And the money, because
yes.
you actually have a career. We're seeing it play out right now with a what was presented as a stay-at-home mom going on InfoWars, dropping the N-word, and then publicly thanking black people for their role in I'm not in an echo chamber. I may be here on this show. I live in South Florida. I hear your opinions constantly. I'm on X. I understand everyone else's opinions.
I go to the dentist.
I'm in the golf chat.
Yeah, like, I get it all. I really do. I don't
get Russell Brand going with Alex Jones. I don't get that.
Why? These people are showing you who they are. Like, it's just because I have my own opinions, it's not a byproduct of an echo chamber. There's no shortage of everybody else's opinions. Even in sports, I hear Aaron Rodgers' opinions. I can't avoid them. I understand Billy says he couldn't care less about Aaron Rodgers because he is such a superstar and because I work in sports. I have to care. I have to have some conviction one way or another, or otherwise it's just a pretty boring show if everyone's just like, I don't care.
I can't be in this business and say to you that a quarterback who is 40 missing mandatory camp to possibly do psychedelics or ayahuasca, that's something that I'm numb to. Like, I'm not going to do it. Like,
But it's also never been something that isn't a huge national controversy. Quarterback leaves camp reportedly, potentially because of drugs. Like, that's not something that we've ever dealt with, and it's never been handled this way.
It can't be handled anyway, because when would it present itself?
Dan, you were at the center of it. Ricky Williams.
No, that one was so much different.
A little different, different time, Mike.
Yeah,
so much
weaker
different.
drug.
No, in retrospect,
different position.
In retrospect, like, Ricky was so far ahead of his time. Like, no, it's.
I am citing the perfect example right now of how it's usually been covered and how charmed in existence, and it may be more of a charmed existence because Ricky Williams publicly had to die for this.
Not literally.
You know what I meant.
Right,
I'll take 50 though.
Clarify
his identity did have
fine.
to die, and and Ricky did love football, but Ricky's search was beyond football, and Ricky didn't really fit ever in football. Ricky's the one who told us while in the Ravens locker room with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, he's like, "I'm a rabbit, they're wolves."
We spoke about this a little bit last week, Darren Waller and his retirement. Did you see, like, the interview that he did, the podcast that it came out, like, and it ties back slightly to Ricky, where he, like, referenced astrology as to why it is that he was retiring from football. Like, he said that his chart was saying that he should be doing more than just football, and that was one of the factors in retiring from football. He also had a medical issue that none of us knew about, where he says he almost died, and I think it was right after he filmed that music video that we were kind of making fun of. But this seems to be happening, and it's more prevalent.
You can't do any of this stuff without a whole lot of people mocking you, especially in an avenue like this where football is so important that we can't understand anything else being more important than football. And especially in America where work is so important.
you're
that
right,
we
but
can't
No.
understand
You're being paid $50 million a year. That
No.
should be the most important thing to most people.
That's fine, but don't be the guy that says football is the most important thing.
Precisely.
But why?
He's the one telling us that.
Why can't you do that if all you're going to incur is a fine and then you can come back and have your job? The
You can do,
consequences
but why
don't
say
matter.
football needs to be the most important thing and then very publicly have football not be the most important
Billy,
thing?
you can catch anyone on these inconsistencies. You're right. You are absolutely correct. Gotcha, Aaron Rodgers. That seems inconsistent. And also, he'll take the consequences of you thinking that because he doesn't care.
I'm not trying to get him.
Oh, Dan, he cares.
There are
He
no consequences.
cares.
Mike,
he cares more than anybody
It was
else.
$16,000. He could have
cares.
started.
Mike,
He doesn't care.
He cares. He opens up every Pat McAfee segment talking about how he doesn't care when he cares. He cares.
Mike.
He cares about the reaction to this segment. He cares.
He is.
It's icy around him in Tahoe because he cares.
Mike, he's enduring and choosing the consequences of whatever comes with laughingstock, public criticism. He's choosing it. You think he doesn't know that if he misses mandatory camp, it's a thing?
But he's not, though, because then he's also playing the victim and acting as though he's a target, as though his decisions are not, like the consequences aren't the results of his decisions.
And he cannot wait for you to tune in to the next public statement to find out exactly why he was unexcused.
I agree with Billy on the idea that that Aaron Rodgers, like LeBron James, really is addicted to the attention, that there is something about making loud noises that does provide something, even if it's polarization and even if it's loud noises.
So
that
he
come
cares about Sal Licata?
with negativity.
He very much spends a lot of time. It's obvious how much time he spends on the internet. He tells you how much time he spends on the internet by saying how much he reads up on things, and he encourages people to go read the internet on these things. So he very much cares.
All right,
He's aware of it.
So let me put in front of you, okay, if he cares then about the consequences, then why is he doing this?
Because I genuinely think that he thinks that this makes it better. And his rationale is we are keeping stuff out of that facility that doesn't help us win. He is an egomaniac in that way, as a lot of people are, as you and I are. Like, I think he believes that what he is doing, he is rationalized in his mind that this serves a greater good. And a lot of people have made bad decisions rationalizing things they feel serve the greater good.
He also is just creating adversity for himself to overcome. Like, none of this is actual adversity, but then he will now paint it as adversity that he and himself is overcoming, and he's using as a driving force. Like, he's doing this to himself.
The whole thing about him coming back last year from an injury that everybody in medicine was telling us, there is no actual way he can come back. He made that a weekly conversation because he wanted to prove his detractors wrong. He wanted to crack open the door to maybe the science isn't all that smart.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Or I'm sorry, Juju, put it on the poll. Guillermo doesn't do that anymore. At Le Batard Show. Are Dan and Mike egomaniacs?
Duh.
Everybody's got an ego, really.
Come on.
Even the people that present themselves as egoless. There are people that are more egoless, but everyone has a sense of self-worth. And some people who have lived lives and have been high achievers in the public space are naturally going to have a larger ego than others. And if he thinks that he's taking something to maybe take that ego apart as you presented it, and I know you don't speak for ayahuasca, I would love to start seeing.
I speak for big ayahuasca.
Yeah. Well, you presented it as a way that it's very clearly not working for Aaron Rodgers.
On the poll is one of the options.
I am bought and paid for by big ayahuasca, clearly. I'm the only one in the mainstream media advocating for, hey guys, this isn't just tripping balls.
By the way, can we stop searching for stuff? A better self, the meaning of life.
If
what
Phil
happens
Jackson
when I
started,
die?
remember
Just search for a Super Bowl.
Remember
How's
how
that
Phil
sound?
Jackson was covered? Phil Jackson wasn't showing up to meetings because he was out in the mountains, and it was reported that there was this ayahuasca thing around him. Like, it's a natural thing.
No,
Didn't someone
Stop searching.
Didn't someone accuse Rick Carlisle at one point of using peyote? Put it on the poll.
That would
please,
explain some of those
Juju,
fourth quarters.
at LeBatard Show. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, how about searching for a Super Bowl?
Please.
How's that sound? Just make it one word.
I have an updated offer for my wife's ticket. It was $1,900, then it was $1,902 and a gummy.
Yeah.
And the guy originally who went at $1,900 has rebutted with $1,905 and 10 free custom hats.
Wow.
Cincinnati Lou.
We're not going to get up there fast enough. We need to get to $3,000. We're not going to get there in
Still
hats.
tomorrow. So.